Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we have a story that has taken some truly shocking and unexpected twists. If you have been following along, you probably know Jennifer Williams, who gained fame from Basketball Wives, and her husband Christian Gold, also known as Christian Walden. What started as a story about some serious financial issues has now become something much more complicated, much darker, and honestly, very unsettling. This entire situation is turning into something that will make you question everything you thought you knew about the people involved and the world around them. So buckle up, because the journey we are about to dive into is unlike anything you would have expected. Initially, the story centered around some concerning financial issues, with Christian being accused of serious money problems. Investors were claiming that he had mismanaged their money and even accused him of running a Ponzi scheme. It seemed like a typical story of financial mishaps and betrayal, one we hear about far too often. People trusted Christian with their money, only to find out that they had been deceived. The allegations were serious and enough to raise eyebrows in both the financial world and the reality TV community. At that point, many people thought it was just another case of financial mismanagement. But little did we know, the story was about to take an unexpected and shocking turn. As we followed the story, things took a truly dark turn when Jennifer, in an emotional social media post, announced that her husband Christian had tragically passed away in a car accident. The grief she expressed in that post seemed real, and many fans, along with the media, offered their condolences. It was heartbreaking to think that Jennifer had lost her husband in such a tragic way. But as time went on, cracks started to appear in the story. Questions were raised, and the more we learned, the more it became clear that things were not as they seemed. Fast forward to a bombshell revelation. The FBI announced that Christian Gold was alive. Yes, you read that correctly. Alive. The death, the grief, the social media posts, and everything that came with it were all part of an elaborate ruse. Jennifer and Christian allegedly faked his death to avoid facing the legal consequences of the financial crimes he had been accused of. This twist is so shocking, it feels like something straight out of a crime thriller. And now, this story is no longer just about money problems. It is a story about deception, betrayal, and a massive conspiracy that has left everyone stunned. A few weeks ago, we shared the news about a lawsuit against Christian Gold. Investors came forward with serious allegations, claiming that he was running a massive Ponzi scheme. According to their accusations, Christian had taken large amounts of money from them and used it for his personal gain. These investors trusted him with their savings, believing that their investments would grow, but instead, they ended up losing everything. The details of the case were deeply shocking, and the magnitude of the fraud left many in disbelief. The news spread quickly, not just in the financial world, but also within the reality TV community, where Christian was well known. People were left trying to understand how someone who seemed so successful could be accused of such a huge financial crime. As the lawsuit unfolded, the world waited for answers, but what happened next made everything even more confusing. Just when everyone thought they had a handle on the situation, something unexpected and truly heartbreaking occurred. Jennifer Williams, Christian Gold's wife, took to social media to share some news that no one saw coming. In a post filled with raw emotion, Jennifer revealed that her husband had tragically passed away in a car accident. She expressed her grief and sorrow, and the post quickly went viral, with many fans and followers sending their condolences and support. It seemed like a devastating loss for Jennifer, and for a moment, it seemed like the story had taken a tragic turn. People all over the world, including those who had followed the financial scandal closely, were now focused on offering sympathy for Jennifer during this unimaginable time of grief. The tragic death of Christian Gold added a layer of complexity to the already shocking financial allegations. It made the entire situation feel even more real and personal. However, as the days went by, doubts began to emerge. Something didn't feel right. Questions started to surface, and many began to wonder if there was more to this story than met the eye. Little did anyone know, the truth was about to take a wild and unexpected twist. Christian Gold sadly lost his life in a car accident. Jennifer Williams, his wife, shared the heartbreaking news in a deeply emotional post on social media. In her words, she was filled with grief and shock, struggling to accept the sudden loss of her husband. The pain was evident in every line, and it was clear that she was completely broken by the tragic event. Her post touched the hearts of many, as she described the overwhelming sense of loss she was experiencing. It was hard for anyone to imagine the pain she was going through, and for a moment, it seemed like the world had stopped, gripped by the tragedy of losing someone so close. As the news spread, people from all over the internet sent messages of love and support. Fans, friends, and followers all offered their condolences and stood by Jennifer in what was undoubtedly an extremely painful time for her. Many of us, too, shared our deepest sympathies, fully understanding the deep grief that must have been weighing on her heart. It felt like a moment of collective sorrow, where people came together to support Jennifer through the unimaginable pain of losing her husband. In times like these, everyone could relate to the feeling of wanting to offer comfort and show solidarity with someone who had suffered such a devastating loss. However, as Jennifer continued to open up about her emotions and her life following Christian's death, something unexpected began to come to light. Slowly, more details started to emerge that raised questions about the entire situation. At first, it seemed like a simple story of grief, but as she shared more, the story started to unravel in ways no one could have predicted. People began to notice inconsistencies in her statements, and as the investigation progressed, things didn't add up the way they seemed at first. What was initially seen as a tragic story of loss now appeared to have deeper, more complex layers. As the days passed, it became clear that there was much more to the situation than anyone had realized. The truth about Christian's death and the circumstances surrounding it would soon take a turn that would leave everyone shocked and questioning what had really happened. What was once thought to be a heart-wrenching tragedy turned into a story that no one could have anticipated. Jennifer shared what she said were Christian's last words to her before the accident. She remembered how he strongly denied the accusations of fraud, claiming that his trading business was legitimate. He explained that, while it carried inherent risks, it was a real business, and the people who invested in it had the chance to make money, but also face the risk of losing it. Jennifer spoke with deep emotion, and it was clear that she believed her husband's words. She said he truly believed that he had made millions for his investors, claiming that those who lost money were simply making up stories out of greed. According to Jennifer, Christian felt that his business was misunderstood and that those who faced losses were only looking for someone to blame. Her heartfelt recount of his words painted a picture of a man who, despite the serious allegations against him, stood firm in his innocence until the end. Jennifer's story, filled with raw emotion, made many question the accusations against Christian. The way she shared his words seemed to cast doubt on the validity of the fraud allegations. People who were following the case were left to wonder whether Christian was really the villain he was made out to be, or if the allegations were being exaggerated or misunderstood. Some began to reconsider the possibility that he might have been a victim of a smear campaign, or that he had fallen victim to a risky business venture that spiraled out of control. However, it is important to remember that these are Jennifer's words and perspective, told through the lens of someone grieving the loss of her husband. While her emotions are valid and her pain is real, the legal situation is far more complex. Christian's claims, if true, still need to be evaluated in the context of the ongoing investigation and the allegations made by investors. The fact that Jennifer spoke with such conviction about his innocence does not change the reality of the legal proceedings or the serious nature of the charges. It is crucial to approach this story with caution, as emotions can cloud judgment, and truth may be more complicated than it initially seems. With the legal process still ongoing, it is too early to draw conclusions about whether Christian was truly innocent or whether the accusations against him hold any truth. This complex situation continues to unfold, and as more facts come to light, we will have a clearer picture of what really happened. It seems like they came up with a very complicated plan to avoid facing the legal consequences of the serious fraud accusations against them. Christian Gold and Jennifer Williams allegedly faked his death in a desperate attempt to escape the same mounting lawsuit and possibly disappear with any remaining funds from his fraudulent activities. This entire scheme appears to have been meticulously planned to buy them time and avoid being held accountable for the millions of dollars that investors are claiming were stolen through Christian's Ponzi scheme. According to sources within the FBI, the situation began to raise red flags right after Jennifer Williams posted on social media announcing Christian's tragic death. The heartfelt message, filled with grief and sorrow, seemed too convenient at the time, and it quickly caught the attention of investigators. Immediately after the post, agents reached out to Jennifer in an attempt to gain more information, but according to reports, she allegedly refused to cooperate with the authorities. This non-cooperation sparked even more suspicion, and it wasn't long before the FBI initiated an undercover investigation into the situation. The investigation quickly grew more intense as agents began to track Jennifer's phone calls and communications. As the pieces of the puzzle started to come together, they uncovered something truly surprising. Agents reportedly found evidence that suggested Jennifer and Christian were not only involved in staging the death, but they had also been in contact with each other during the time when the supposed accident occurred. This raised further questions about the authenticity of the entire situation. The investigators were beginning to believe that this wasn't just a tragic accident, but rather part of a much larger and more calculated plot designed to deceive the public, mislead law enforcement, and potentially avoid any legal repercussions. As agents dug deeper, they started to uncover a web of lies, with hidden communication channels and suspicious financial transactions that seemed to point to a coordinated effort between Jennifer and Christian to cover their tracks and potentially escape their past actions. It is clear now that what initially seemed like an unimaginable tragedy is turning out to be a much darker and more calculated scheme, one that is about to have serious legal and criminal consequences for everyone involved. The story is far from over, and the truth is still unfolding. The investigation uncovered a series of messages exchanged between Jennifer Williams and Christian Gold, which led authorities to a location where, just hours ago, both were arrested. This shocking turn of events confirmed that the story was far from what it originally seemed. The FBI's deep dive into their communications revealed that they had been in contact throughout the entire period surrounding the alleged car accident, suggesting a level of coordination and planning that raised even more questions. The authorities, upon tracking the messages, were able to pinpoint the couple's location, leading to their capture. The arrest of both Jennifer and Christian marked a dramatic shift in the investigation. No longer are they seen as victims of a tragic incident, but as individuals who may have been masterminding an elaborate scheme to escape the consequences of their actions. The charges they now face are serious and far-reaching. In addition to the original fraud charges, which involved the alleged Ponzi scheme that had already ruined the lives of countless investors, they are now facing new charges. These include conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and potentially insurance fraud, depending on the extent to which their alleged plan stretched. The FBI is working diligently to uncover the full scope of this scheme, and it is possible that more charges will follow if further evidence is found. The situation is unfolding incredibly fast, and the ramifications of their actions could be devastating. What once appeared to be a tragic loss and a tale of grief has turned into a complex web of deceit, manipulation, and betrayal. The more authorities uncover, the more disturbing it becomes. It is not only the victims of the fraud who have been hurt, but also the countless people who believed in Jennifer and Christian, offering them sympathy and support during what they thought was a difficult time. As the investigation continues, the consequences for Jennifer and Christian will be significant. Their arrest is just the beginning of a legal battle that could lead to long prison sentences if they are convicted of all charges. What seemed like a sad, isolated incident is now becoming a major case of criminal deception, and the FBI's investigation is just beginning to reveal the full extent of the alleged conspiracy. The fallout from this story will likely be felt for a long time. Jennifer Williams, who we once thought was simply grieving the loss of her husband, is now at the center of a shocking turn of events. She is being accused of playing a major role in a very complicated plan to scam investors and avoid facing the legal consequences of the fraud allegations against her and her husband, Christian Gold. What was initially seen as an unimaginable tragedy has quickly evolved into a story filled with deception, manipulation, and an alleged scheme so elaborate that it could change everything we thought we knew about the case. Christian Gold, who was believed to have tragically passed away in a car accident, is now revealed to be very much alive. This revelation has completely shifted the focus of the investigation. Instead of being remembered as a victim, he now faces the full force of the law for his role in allegedly running a Ponzi scheme that scammed countless investors. The initial lawsuit, which included accusations of financial wrongdoing, has now taken on a whole new dimension. In addition to the original fraud charges, Christian is now facing serious criminal charges related to conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and potentially even insurance fraud. The complexity of the case has grown significantly, and the legal consequences for him and Jennifer could be immense. The RICO, Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations case, which many were already worried about due to the scale of the fraud and the potential involvement of organized crime, has gained even more weight. This case has now become a major legal matter, and if the accusations turn out to be true, both Jennifer and Christian could face some of the most severe legal consequences imaginable. The nature of the charges could lead to years of legal battles, and if convicted, they could spend significant time in prison. The criminal charges against them are only continuing to grow as investigators uncover more evidence of their alleged involvement in the scam. What once seemed like a simple case of financial misconduct has now turned into a deeply complex and troubling story of lies, manipulation, and conspiracy. If these accusations are proven true, the consequences for both Jennifer Williams and Christian Gold could be far-reaching and devastating, not just for them, but for everyone who has been affected by their actions. The full extent of their alleged plan is still coming to light, and as it does, it only continues to shock and surprise. Jennifer Williams and Christian Gold could face long prison sentences if the allegations are proven true. This situation is still unfolding, and the weight of what they are being accused of is massive. Let us take a moment to look back at some key details we now know, especially considering all the new information that has come to light in recent weeks. One of the most striking pieces of the story is Jennifer's claims about Christian's last words to her before his supposed death. She spoke about how Christian strongly maintained his innocence, insisting that he had built a legitimate trading business. He argued that while it had risks, it also offered the potential for investors to make money. According to her, he believed that the investors who had lost money were simply creating false stories out of greed, rather than being victims of his actions. In her emotional post, Jennifer painted a picture of a man who was misunderstood, and she made it sound as though he was a victim of circumstances, not a perpetrator of fraud. But now, with the latest developments from the FBI, many people are starting to question whether these words were genuine or part of a much bigger plan. Were Christian's last words a desperate attempt to maintain his innocence in the face of the accusations against him? Or were they a carefully crafted part of a larger narrative designed to trick both investigators and the public? It is hard to know for sure at this moment, especially with so many details still emerging. However, the FBI clearly has their doubts. Their investigation has uncovered new evidence that seems to contradict the image Jennifer and Christian were trying to portray. According to reports, the FBI suspects that the story they presented may have been a carefully orchestrated plan to buy time and cover up their involvement in a massive financial scam. As the investigation continues, it will be important to see how these claims hold up and whether the evidence will support the theory that Jennifer and Christian were trying to mislead everyone, from the public to the authorities. The truth is still coming to light, but what seemed like a story of loss and grief is now beginning to look like an elaborate deception designed to escape the consequences of their actions. There is also a significant moral and ethical aspect to this story that cannot be ignored. If the accusations against Jennifer Williams and Christian Gold are indeed true, they may have exploited the emotions of their followers and the general public to carry out their plan. Grief and sympathy are powerful emotions, and it appears they may have used these emotions as tools to manipulate people into believing their story. By making the public think that Jennifer had tragically lost her husband and that Christian had been a victim of a tragic accident, they may have diverted attention away from their alleged financial wrongdoings. This is a level of deception that goes beyond financial fraud. It strikes at the core of human trust and vulnerability. It is a betrayal of the highest order, where people's feelings were used against them for personal gain. The consequences for this type of manipulation will be profound, not only legally but also socially. If it is proven that Jennifer and Christian intentionally deceived the public in such a heartless way, it will leave a lasting stain on their reputations, and they will have to face the full extent of the law. The public, who once empathized with them, will now have to come to terms with the fact that they were misled in a deeply emotional and manipulative manner. This entire situation forces us to rethink everything we thought we knew about the story. What we once believed to be a tale of personal loss and financial ruin could turn out to be a carefully crafted web of lies and deceit. The public was drawn into the narrative, but now it seems like much of that story may have been false, designed to manipulate emotions for personal and financial gain. This should serve as a wake-up call for all of us. We must be more cautious and critical about the information we see online, especially when it is shared during times of crisis or emotional distress. Stories like these highlight the dangers of blindly trusting what we read or hear, particularly on social media, where narratives can easily be manipulated. It is important to verify facts and be mindful of the sources of information we rely on. While it's natural to want to trust what we see, this situation teaches us that we must question everything, particularly when emotions are involved, as they can be used to exploit and deceive. Especially during times of crisis, it is crucial to remember that sometimes the truth can be stranger than fiction. In moments of vulnerability, we often rely on emotional stories, and it is easy to be swept up in the wave of sympathy that follows a tragic event. In this case, the media and social media played a significant role in spreading the narrative of grief and loss surrounding Jennifer Williams and Christian Gold. As their story unfolded, many people expressed their sympathies and offered support, not knowing that the truth behind the situation was far more complex than it initially seemed. While it is important for the media to report on events and share updates, it is equally important to do so with caution and a healthy dose of skepticism. The narrative that Jennifer shared about the loss of her husband was filled with emotion, which made it even more difficult to question the authenticity of the situation. However, as the facts emerged, it became clear that things were not as they appeared. This situation serves as a strong reminder of how powerful false information can be, particularly when it is presented in such an emotionally charged way. When people are grieving, they are often at their most vulnerable, and others may take advantage of that vulnerability to push a particular narrative, as we have seen in this case. False information can spread like wildfire, and once it is out there, it can be difficult to take it back. This makes it all the more important to check the facts before sharing them with others. What we once believed to be a story of personal loss now seems to have been carefully crafted as a tool for manipulation and deceit. The emotional weight of the situation blinded many of us, and it is a sobering lesson about the need to remain vigilant in the face of such powerful emotions. This situation has affected many people, especially the investors who allegedly lost their money in the Ponzi scheme. The financial impact on these individuals is significant, and they have now been caught in a web of deception that has caused them emotional and financial distress. As this case continues to unfold, it is a stark reminder of the importance of critically evaluating the information we receive, especially when emotions are at play. In the end, the truth may be stranger than we could have ever imagined. Many people have been deeply affected by this situation. The investors who trusted Christian Gold and lost their hard-earned savings, the fans who believed in Jennifer Williams and supported her during what seemed to be an incredibly difficult time, and even those of us in the media who reported on the story, only to later realize that the truth was far more complicated than we initially thought. The shock and betrayal felt by so many is hard to put into words. For the investors, the financial losses they have suffered are devastating. They put their trust in a man who now appears to have been running a deceptive scheme, and many are left questioning how they could have been so easily manipulated. It is not just their money that is at stake here, but also their sense of security and trust in others. For the fans who supported Jennifer Williams, this revelation is equally jarring. They believed in her grief, her pain, and her story. Now, they too are left questioning everything they thought they knew about the situation. It is painful to see how deeply they were affected by what now seems to have been an elaborate deception. As for those of us in the media, this situation has been a wake-up call. We reported on what appeared to be a tragic story, not knowing the full extent of the truth. We relied on the information we had, but this case highlights the importance of digging deeper, asking the right questions, and always remaining open to the possibility that there is more to a story than what meets the eye. As this story continues to unfold, we will do our best to keep you updated with the latest information. Our goal is to share the facts as clearly and truthfully as possible, so that you can form your own opinions based on accurate and verified information. We understand the importance of transparency and reporting, especially in a case like this, where emotions are running high and trust has been broken. We also encourage you to think carefully and be responsible when reading or sharing information. It is easy to get swept up in the emotions of a story, but it is essential to approach each piece of news with a critical eye, especially in times like this when the truth can sometimes be harder to find. The story of Jennifer Williams and Christian. Gold is far from finished, and as new details emerge, we will continue to provide updates and keep you informed.